What's up everybody, it's Victon here with my in-depth review on the newly released looter shooter Outriders. And before I get started going on this review, I wanted to briefly mention a bit about my experience in the gaming world. I come mainly from the ARPG genre with such games like Path of Exile and Diablo 3. Now I, like most other players, have played a ton of looter shooters along the way as well, most notably for myself Destiny for a short time and a bit of Division 1. I always love me some good looter shooters to take a break from my normal gaming, but admittedly I do find myself leaving those looter shooters after a week or two for various reasons. And I'll say straight up here, a little tease for this review, I actually see myself playing the game longer than any other looter shooter I've ever played before. While it does have a few hiccups, some features to be desired, both of which we'll cover in this review, I do believe this game is a shining example of what other looter shooters should aim for. With so many amazing features that mirror the wants and needs that I get from my normal ARPG games, this game is right up my alley, and I do believe that even the most seasoned looter shooter gamers out there would agree this game turned out to be a winner, and I'm super excited to dive into the endgame, grind out some awesome gear, and have a blast while playing it solo or in a party with friends or even some random players out there for that matter. We'll of course go into more detail about my thoughts on each topic here, but feel free to use the timestamps to jump around to various parts in this review to get a better feel for the topics that interest you the most. Now remember that I'll be giving this review as my initial thoughts developed through playing the campaign, which I have now finished, and just starting diving into the in-game system, which I've played up to Challenge Tier 6. I think the amount of gameplay is pretty good average of what most players will get under their belts in this game, so likewise a great place to take a minute and make this review. So let's start off with the cons, because honestly there aren't too many, the first of which being the biggest but also the easiest effects, the server and game stability issues. Now I'll preface this section by saying that I do believe all of these will get fixed here in the very near future, so for someone checking out this review in say a week or two of this video's release, most if not all of these issues will have likely already been fixed. But regardless, it is still fair and necessary to bring them up in this review. So personally, I actually got hit incredibly hard with this game's stability issue. Day one, I logged into the game and instantly crashed the desktop with no error message. I was very sad, and that was not a good sign. I kept trying but literally couldn't get past 5 seconds of the game without it crashing every single time. I had to shut off my stream and start trying to fix the problem, but no matter what fix I tried, nothing worked until finally, midday 2, they came out with a patch that fixed the issue. So from there, I finally was able to get into the game, but another issue, the login servers started going down, so I sat there trying to defeat the login boss for another 2 hours until I finally managed to get in the game and started playing. Since then, I haven't crashed at all, so that's nice, but I have disconnected from the server a few times and have had to battle it out with that dreaded login boss more times than I'd like. Now, I do of course understand this is a newly released game, and even though people rage at games when this happens, I do know that even AAA titled games most always have some type of launch issues, and most of the times it deals with server issues, so I'm not too surprised here, but certainly disappointed. I'm sure these issues will be fixed here soon, and honestly devs have been pretty upfront and open with their communication and pushing out hotfixes very fast, so they do have that going for them for sure. So for another con, we're actually going to be staying on the topic of game stability, because I have noticed while playing in matchmaking parties, there are occasionally super serious lag issues. I've done some digging, and apparently this game is peer-to-peer, so we're not running on the game's servers, but rather connecting to someone else's personal instance based off of their internet speeds. So if you're super far away from the person you're playing with, or they have crappy internet, you might experience some lag. It wasn't unplayable, but it was nearly unplayable. I think the guy that I had connected to was from Asia or somewhere, so my connection to him was pretty bad, and that happened a few times. Other times though, connecting to players that were closer to where I lived, the connection was great, and we had a solid time playing co-op together without any issues. Again, I'm sure this will get fixed here in the near future, so while I don't take too many points off the game's overall score, it is still very important to mention. Lastly, for my cons, I would say this is more of a feature I wished was in the game but wasn't. I wish there was a hub where you could interact with other live players, check out their gear, and just in general feel that you're in a living world. Whereas sadly the final hub once you get to the in-game is a solo instance, little desert-like oasis, where granted you have everything you need in there, but it's just you and you're lonesome, and it feels a bit claustrophobic. Pretty minor gripe, so let's move on to the pros of this game. So as you could tell, that was a pretty small list of cons, and seriously those have been my only complaints of this game so far, most of which hopefully can be addressed here in the next week or two and not even be a factor anymore. For pros, we have much more to talk about, so let's dive straight in. First, let's chat about the campaign. Now, I'm not a big story guy and usually don't spend too much time on lore or anything like that, and the same can be said about my playthrough on this game. Now, from what I did see, the story did seem interesting and well developed, but about 1/4 of the way through I decided to skip cutscenes because I was already so far behind since I couldn't play for 2 days for crashing. I also decided to skip all the side quests, and man, there were so many side quests, which, by the way, I am all for. For someone really wanting to get a solid campaign experience, I definitely think there's more than enough content here. Just zooming through no cutscenes or side quests, it took me about 6 hours to beat the game. I have to imagine it'd be significantly more if you did all the side quests, didn't skip cutscenes, and kept your world tier as high as possible. That was actually another thing that I liked. I legit put my world tier at 1, which is basically the difficulty at the lowest tier possible. Now sure, I wasn't getting the best loot I could have with higher tiers, but it didn't even matter. I was absolutely flying through the campaign because everything was decently easy with mobs having much lower HP. I like the fact that they give you the option to choose how difficult the campaign is, and it's from scale to 1 to 15, so plenty of scaling to get it exactly the way you want. You could choose to blast through the campaign to get to the endgame content as soon as possible, or you can take your time, do all the side quests, turn on normal, even higher difficulty, and have a blast that way. Side note, I actually think it's really good if you plan on leveling a second or third character to just do tier 1 and blast through it to endgame. I personally am never a fan of having to spend tons of time leveling up a second or third character, so this game giving me an option to cut down on that leveling time, I am all for that. And speaking of different characters, let's briefly go over the class system. There's 4 classes: the Technomancer, Pyromancer, Devastator, and the Trickster, which is what I chose. For the most part, they're all actually pretty balanced. The word on the street is that the Technomancer is a great support class and possibly the best solo character. The Trickster has the highest damage output and is great for group play where he can get buffed even further for higher damage. The Devastator is a fantastic tank that can also dish out some really solid damage, and the Pyromancer, while currently a bit lacking in DPS and survivability, has some of the flashiest abilities and playstyle. Going further, within those 4 classes you can have 3 different skill trees to choose from, all of which giving very different playstyles. That mixed with your choice from 8 different skills and the mods you can craft on gear, which can further alter your playstyle, you really get to see how many different builds there are that you can try out. And to me, that's what really brings this game home and wins me over. Coming from an ARPG genre, we're building characters and seeing which different versions work the best in the in-game content. That is what the most fun is for me, and this game has all of that and more. That brings me to our next section, the in-game. Once you beat the campaign, you unlock your in-game hub, where you can stash your gear, purchase upgrades with earned in-game currency, craft your gear, join up with friends or matchmaking, and just start knocking out expeditions. There's currently 13 different expeditions, which you might liken to instance dungeons in MMOs, and one final boss fight that only opens up once you've beaten everything else. And on top of those expeditions, you also have challenge tiers, which, like the world tiers in the campaign, up the difficulty and loot rewards you get from completing the runs. You also get more and better loot the faster you complete maps, so you're always up against the clock to get better times. Not to mention that even if you die, you still get some loot, a nice quality of life feature that makes sure you don't feel like you're wasting time, even if you die almost at the end of an expedition, because I forgot to mention, you only get 1 life on these things. If you're in a party, you can of course res your teammates, but if you're solo, it's all up to you. Also, all 13 expeditions are brand new content. Nothing is reused from the campaign. It's all new, which is actually saying quite a bit, for most other games just reuse old content for their endgame systems. With each expedition taking anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes, and there being 13 of them at launch, there is a lot of content here to grind away and not get burnt out on. That brings me to the next section, which is crafting and mods. Once you get into the second zone, you can actually unlock the ability to start crafting on your gear and change out mods. And I love the crafting system. It's super simple and straightforward in this game. You just head on over to Dr. Zahidi in any town hub and open up his crafting menu. For your resources, you have scrap, which is basically like gold in any other game that you're going to get from selling your items. You have leather, which helps you upgrade your armor. There's iron, which helps you upgrade your weapons. And then there's titanium, which upgrades your item's rarity to higher tier items. And lastly, there's drop pod resources, which are the in-game currency you get from completing expeditions. On your gear, you can improve rarity, raise attributes, mod your gear, swap variants on weapons, and even level them up, so tons of different crafting options. Modding your items is where it gets really interesting. There's 3 different tiers of mods to choose from, all of which having strong game-changing features. Tier 1 mods affecting your skills, Tier 2 giving you strong bonuses as you play, and Tier 3 coming from dismantling legendary items gives you access to very strong mods that significantly alter your gameplay in some unique ways. You collect all of these mods by simply dismantling the items that you find on mobs that you don't already have, and those get added to your library. You can also only change the mod of one of the 2 mods that come on gear. This makes chasing items with perfect mods and attributes a big part of the in-game grind. Honestly, all of this talk about the in-game is really what sold it for me. Being an avid ARPG player, I absolutely love the fact that this focuses on progressing through a challenging in-game system, looting gear, and creating unique builds. If I had to give a summed up version of this review, this is what I would say. While Outriders may have some initial growing pains with server, game stability, and matchmaking lag, I do believe that the core game and features are just too good to let those minor temporary complaints outweigh the fact that this game is just awesome in so many ways. The well-polished campaign is as short and easy, or as challenging and as long as you want it to be. The classes all feel unique and diverse with their skill trees. The crafting systems and mods that greatly affect your gameplay style is very well done and can be done even while playing through the campaign, and even more so in the in-game. The in-game itself has tons of content with 13 challenging expeditions and 1 final in-game boss, all of which comes with 15 noticeably different difficulty tiers. And lastly, there's the ultimate chase for perfect epic and legendary items with the best mods and stats. I don't know, I just think that Outriders is a fantastic example of what a looter shooter should look like. Personally, I'll be weathering the growing pains no problem and playing this game for quite some time to come, and I'm very much looking forward to grinding out some in-game expeditions all the way up to Challenge Tier 15 and then taking down that elusive in-game boss. Anyways, that is my in-depth review of Outriders so far. I hope you guys enjoyed and got some good takeaways, and hopefully that helped you guys decide if this game is something you'd like to pick up or not. If you did, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for a ton more upcoming Outriders content. Check out my Twitch stream, which will be linked below, and if you're interested in supporting the channel, consider subscribing on Patreon. That's all I got for this one, guys. Thanks everyone, and I will catch y'all in the next one.